What sign? You know, we usually have the historical signs.
Oh, I didn't even know.
I shouldn't have said anything, nobody would notice even. Teresa knew, yes, Teresa would notice that. Well, welcome tonight. I'm so glad you all are here. We got such an exciting program tonight, so it's nice to have a full house. And there are cookies and water to the side there and some napkins, so it's not rude to get up and get some if you want. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to open this up with a prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this wonderful place we live in. We thank you for all of the blessings that in our lives, our homes, our families, our friends, the work you give us, providing for all our needs. And we thank you so much for that. We thank you for the history of Gulf Breeze and the history of Florida. And we're going to hear more about that tonight. And we thank you for Brian coming tonight. And if anyone else is on their way, just bring them here safely. Be with us while we're here tonight and then get us home safely. And just bless everyone this coming Thanksgiving. We are thankful for so much. And we're mostly thankful that we know you. We love you and we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Okay, and Brian, would you like to, if everybody would stand and the flag's right here. I'm going to let you start us off with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Which one?
Okay.
To the flag.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now I'm going to invite Jim Cox up to introduce our special speaker for tonight.
When you ask people when does the history of Gulf Breeze start, some people might say, we were incorporated in 1961. That's the start. And others say, no, it was when the Duncan brothers homesteaded in the 1870s, and they were the first homesteaders here. Okay, and tonight's speaker is going to be talking about before that. Okay, right before that. Okay, he's from the University of Pensacola State. Okay.
Well, not university.
Pensacola State University. College. And he's got a PhD in history. He's also recently awarded the Wentworth Endowed Chair of History, and to fund his field trips he does with the students, okay, all over Northwest Florida and Alabama and so forth. Okay. And he's going to talk to us about life in the West Florida frontier. And I think he was here about 3 years ago. Yeah, about 3 years ago. He was here. I'm delighted that he's back. Okay.
Thank you. Before we get started tonight, I got a couple of things to clear up. I'm not Brian Rucker, I'm just kidding. But a member of the Gulf Breeze Historical Society on the board many years ago, Randall Broxton, some of you might remember him. He's still kicking, he's sort of homebound today, but he just published a book on O.C. Clubs, who was an early pioneer. She was involved in historic preservation and education in Pensacola, and he got published, and it just came out, so he said, please let them know. I do have some copies here, and if you're not interested, I got flyers to find someone that might be interested. So he's out with his latest book. I just wanted to plug that, because Randall said please, and I said please give a hug to Chris. Anyhow, we're here. Okay, I'm going to take off this thing. First of all, it's stinking hot. I may look like a frontierman, but let me tell you, this thing is heavy. Because this is what people wore in the wintertime around here. Because we know it gets cold, Snowmageddon, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, actually, before I do this is a really versatile. I come dressed as a tractor pioneer. I should have worn the boots and the leggings. I actually have some moccasins from up there. But I figured, you know what's interesting, this is very versatile, because also I can use it for my students when I do the 60s. Amen. Peace and love. So, anywho, okay, let's put me aside. The frontier, before we get going, I really want to share with you some artifacts before I start talking about the frontier, because you're probably wondering, what is all this stuff? I'm wondering that too. Some of you guessed what this was earlier. Y'all know what this is?
Yeah.
Well, that's called you guessed it. I had students one day, and they said, "Is that antique sex toys?" I said, no, these are log dogs. And in the lumber industry of the 1800s, even up to the early 1900s, this is how the local lumbermen would connect logs. After they cut the trees down, put them in their streams, the log flumes, to get down the mill, they would hook them together, make rafts out of them. Sometimes a single file of logs in a log flume, which would extend like a mile in length. And so when they got down to the mill, they took these out, took them back to the north end of the counties, and started the process all over again. So these are log dogs. Now, what else do I have? It's like a magician's outfit. These are all basically family artifacts too. Speaking of the logging industry, y'all know what this is?
Yeah.
A cant hook. A cant hook, short for cantilever. If it's got a little tip on it, it's called a peavey. Oh, that was a patented thing. This is how people move logs. And what they do is try to move a log, and they do this, and you basically use some leverage, and you can move heavy logs. Very useful after hurricanes, too. Yes, this is my great-grandparents. And I used it after Ivan and Dennis, folks. Really, I mean, it's wonderful. You saw up some of the stuff, how you move that huge log, and these things are a wonderful thing. We actually, we had at the Arcadia Museum up in Milton, they had 87 trees down after, I think it was Ivan, and the caretaker, they got completely cut in by, they were stuck in the museum because nobody could get out of the driveways while the tree's down. So I said, what happened? How'd you get out of there? They took the cross-cut saw off the museum wall. And when you're using museum artifacts to, yeah, that's crazy.
How old is that thing, Brian?
Oh,
Like 100 years old?
actually, probably, yeah. I was thinking, well, yeah, this is 1925. So, yeah, probably 100 years old. Now, you can still get these in hardware stores.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like I said, this is essential if you live in Florida, especially when there's no power. So anyhow, that's a cantilever hook. I can't hook. Pioneer dentistry. Just kidding.
Ow.
Yeah, open wide. Now, this is what they use in the logging industry. If they're going to put together a raft of logs and put them, I got a whole PowerPoint of the logging industry. I should show it to you sometime. It's really cool. Everything from the trees to the docks. Anyhow, they would drill a hole in the logs, tie them together with other cords and stuff, and this is how they put the logs together. Now, that was used in the 1800s. In the 1900s, after the pine has sort of played out, you got the turpentine industry. And a lot of turpentine, the sap, the pine tar, is still stuck in the stumps. So the trees were cut, but there's still good money in the stumps. So what they would do, they figured out this is exactly the same size as a piece of dynamite. So they drill a hole in the base of the stump, put a stick of dynamite in it, and blow the stump out of the ground, and then haul it over to like Newport Industries or Gold Point, where they're making the turpentine and stuff like that. So this was used both for the lumber industry and the turpentine industry. And speaking of which, well, a lot of pioneers were using turpentine. Oh, it's heavy. This is a turpentine hack. Turpentine is getting the pine tar out of a pine tree. And basically you use this, it's very heavy, got a lead weight, and you scrape the pine bark in a V shape, and it starts bleeding, and so the sap, you put under the sap, either a terracotta cup or one of these, a turpentine cup. For years, I thought this was a bail bucket you used when you went fishing. You have a leaky boat. That's what we used them for, and I thought, oh, okay, did not know the bail bucket was also had a previous incarnation.
I thought that's how you made your bread.
You know, it might have been, because waste not, want not. You don't have Dollar General back then. Anyhow, the pine tar would drip down into there, and unfortunately, for the people who work in the turpentine industry, every day it seals back up, the turpentine seals, it gets gummy, and you have to cut this every day. And eventually you have these V shapes. They call them cat faces, because it looks like a bunch of whiskers on a cat. And sometimes the cat face would be 6 foot tall. And the people that did the hacking, the hackers, they had to cut these things, use that weight to cut through it every day, and each person was responsible for 8,000 pine trees a week. Yeah, 8,000 pine trees a week. So, yeah, think about that. Yeah. So it was not an easy job. This is a Victor animal trap, just like the Victor mouse traps. It's got the V on it. Any place on the frontier had animal traps. You had to catch the animals for pelts and furs or meat, food. I mean, you had, like I said, there's no Publix back then. It was a sad age. And this was what people used on a day-to-day basis. This was my grandfather's. He used this in the 1920s. This is fairly new, this is 100 years old, but I always consider it fairly new. And this was used for catching raccoons. Because you know what happened in the 20s, don't you?
The cows.
No.
Oh.
The raccoon skin coats. The
Coats,
flappers
too.
had their dresses, short skirts, but the men wore these raccoon skin coats that went from the chin down to their ankles, and they wore them even in the summertime to make them look cool, which they're sticking on. If you look at old college football games of the 20s on film, and you look at the stands, half the people look like bears.
Yeah.
Because they didn't wear the stupid raccoon skin coats. But there was a big demand for raccoons. And so my grandfather, he was young at the time, he was making, some money. I think 25 cents for a raccoon. Now, what you said was good, because raccoons are victims of fashion. In 1955, a TV show came out called Davy Crockett. Every kid in America had to have a raccoon skin cap. And so I'm just waiting for the next thing. Lady Gaga's gonna wear raccoon skin panties, and that's gonna be the next thing. Poor raccoons, victims of fashion. Anyhow, I saved my best for last. I need a volunteer. No, just kidding. It was a joke. It was just a joke.
Take my husband, please.
This won't hurt much. The whip was often a very important essential in any pioneer family. And I got this a couple of years ago. The people said, okay, now remember when you're practicing it, wear a face shield and some leather gloves. And of course, I don't need that. Trust me, when you start doing that, you need it. Now eventually you get better and better, but if you aren't going to just start practicing, it doesn't come naturally at first. It's one of the things you have to practice at. When you crack the whip, it's breaking the sound barrier. That's what makes the crack. And of course, students wanted me to demonstrate it in the classroom. It was a low ceiling. I took out a ceiling tile. But then at one night class I had, during the break, I said, everybody come outside and I'll pop it. And it sounded like a .22 rifle going off.
Right.
So, bam! That's pretty cool. 5 minutes later, the campus police arrived. So anybody got a gun around here? I'm just like, no, there's no gun around here. So I don't do that anymore. Now why is this important? Because many of the people in the Pioneer that came down here and settled in the woods between the Perdido and the Apalachicola River, They were hunters and drovers, meaning they hunted or they drove cattle and hogs. They were basically herdsmen. They called them cow hunters. If they're cowboys, they don't call them Florida cowboys. They like to be called cow hunters. And they would have ranges going out from here to there. People would, you come across their homesteads and they look really just, there's nothing here. These people are dirt poor. They might have 1,000 head of cattle. They might have 500 hogs. It's just back then, everything was free range. You didn't see them on the homestead. You would brand the cows, your brand, and register it in the local courthouse as your trademark, and then you brand the calves in the springtime. In the fall, you would take the cows to market, round them up out of the swamps and the woods, and take them to market on cattle drive. Now, hogs, they also registered. You didn't brand a hog, that's called bacon. So what they would do is they would notch out the ears, cut notches out the ears in specific designs, and those were also registered there at the county courthouse. It's really cool, actually. So they had these brands, but yeah, everything was free range. And this is where this is important. Many of these people came down from the Carolinas, Virginia, making their way down to Georgia, Alabama, into Florida, and by the 1820s. A lot of them were these herders and drovers, these cow hunters, and they used the whip to get the cows to go. And it was an interesting thing. You had this symbiotic relationship between the cow hunter and his horse, and usually a cow dog, often called a cur dog. They would curtail the cow. And the practice around the whip, so the horse gets used to it. When they hear they know the crack is coming, so they'll close their ears. You can see their ears close. It's pretty cool. That's also when horses go across rivers, they close their ears so they don't get the water there. So you know from a time, they know the crack's coming. Cows don't. So you make the cows go different directions by cracking the whip at them. Now, also, this was a form of telegraph. Like bam, 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 I'm in trouble. It's an SOS. So down there especially in the lowlands where the cows often were, eating acorns and stuff like that, you could hear what they called the whip crackers. And that's where you get the term cracker. A lot of people think it's a disparaging comment, but crackers were just basically these cow hunters and drovers, and they were whip crackers and then crackers. This was a style of life for thousands of families spread across from Jacksonville to Pensacola. Anyhow, people romanticized the frontier. Oh, it was so wonderful. People lived like, it was just peaceful. No! Every day was a struggle for survival. It's been romanticized by Hollywood and stories and novels, but every day you had, first of all, you had to worry about hostile Indians. You had to worry about outlaws and in-laws too. And then you had to worry about bears and panthers and wolves that could do damage to your livestock or to you, given the occasion. One of the founders of Fort Walton Beach, they had to burn bonfires at night to keep the bears away from their cattle and their livestock. And then sometimes they would just bring the livestock into the log cabin with them. So, and they said, the one guy, he kept a record, he killed 52 bears in a year. And he said there was no appreciable decline in the bear population. So, I mean, we're in Gulf Breeze now, we know all about that, don't we? The bears are still here, but 52 bears a year didn't make a dent. And you also had to worry in the lower regions, swampy regions, alligators and snakes. And then there's the things you can't see. Mosquitoes carry yellow fever, malaria, typhoid, stuff like that. I mean, every day was a struggle for survival. When the early pioneers came down here, they didn't go to a real estate agent. There was no such thing. They basically squatted land, lived there for so many years, said, yeah, that's ours. Sometimes they actually buy it, but a lot of times early pioneers were just squatting on the land. And they'd find like 20 acres, and they'd clear off every piece of it, and they would put a log cabin right in the middle. And they would use all the trees they cut down to build the log cabin. Log cabins were very easy to build. If you ever played with Lincoln logs as a kid, you understand the concept. So here's what they would do. They would around here, they would often put the log cabin up on blocks. Now sometimes they just put it on dirt floor, probably you got a dirt floor. And snakes crawl in and you got a dirt floor. They would spend extra time to put up a log cabin up on blocks or stumps, maybe 2 or 3 feet high. Why? Because it's the south, it gets hot in the summer, and you got cross flow ventilation. If you see an old house around here that's up on blocks, it was built before air conditioning was common. So that's one of those things that we know about, and you can tell a little bit about, the age of that house. Now, how big is a log cabin? Well, it depended on how big the family was. A large family could build a log cabin half the size of this room in one day. It's pretty easy to put this, and then they would chink it with mud and stuff like that to fill the interstices. He said, well, what about in the summer? They just knock it out so you get more cross flow ventilation. Now, the garden where they would plant, that 20 acres they cleared off, they left the stumps because people didn't have dynamite back then. They didn't have root be gone. It just took too much effort to remove the stumps, so they waited until the stumps rotted away. So what you have, they planted not rows across, but little patches, little hills of the corn and pumpkins and squash and what have you. So it doesn't look like House Beautiful. You see a log cabin and 20 acres of cut over scrubland with crops growing between the stumps. So it doesn't look like anything fancy. Now, as the stumps were decayed, they would eventually remove them, and you have rows like we commonly think of as a farm. Now, you also had log cabins being used for the barn, a smokehouse, chicken house, the outhouse, the detached kitchen. Usually you didn't have the kitchen inside the house back then. First, it was a fire hazard, also it was stinking hot. So it usually had a detached kitchen that was separate. Now, you didn't slip up on any of these early pioneer homesteads unseen, because there's always like 30 dogs around. They had dogs for, cow dogs and hog dogs and coon dogs, all that type of stuff. By the way, I saw a demonstration with some cow hunters, and the guy with the horse, he's on the horse, he's got a cur dog with him, and they were able to take a cow out of the herd and take it over there. Then the cow hunter dropped the reins, and he pointed where the dog and the horse could both see him, pointed to a cow, and just pointed, and the horse went over there. He's not doing anything. Horse and the dog took the cow out of the herd and separated it. So to see that symbiosis between the horse, the dog, and the guy just giving the directions, it was pretty cool to witness. That's a talent. It really is. And so anyhow, these, they had animals there. You had like a milk cow, some goats, chickens, ducks, geese. Oh my gosh. See, that's why you can't slip up on these places. They had geese. A goose is a good watchdog. 2 geese even better. They come up, "Meow, meow, 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 meow." Thank you for alerting my presence to the human race. And geese are very aggressive. So a goose would come up there, and I've had people tell me, they're very frightened, and they come up there, and they're intimidating. Never turn your back on a goose. Because if you do, they'll get down and run, and they know where the soft parts are. They like back of the knees especially. So you are a human being, a person that can think and analyze and use a phone. And you say, I'm a human being. You're not intimidating me. If you want to leave, just walk backwards, slowly. Keep an eye contact with the goose the entire time. Now, if a second goose comes up behind you, all bets are off, run like hell. You also would see they would keep a hog there, sometimes underneath the house, when the house was up on blocks. He said, you're living in our pig pen, why would you want to do that? Well, pigs are a natural enemy of snakes. And sometimes people keep the pig around just like people in India keep a pet mongoose to keep the cobras away. And a pig will just see a snake and go in there and just start stomping on it and ripping it apart, and it's dead in 30 seconds. So that's one reason to keep a pig around. Now, cats will do that too if it's a small snake. You know, you hear about people charming snakes. Cats can do that. It's not that like the Indian thing, do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. There's no music involved. A cat will come up there, find a snake, and start doing this. It's a swaying movement. And the snake, the head starts to do the same thing, imitating the cat. And then like, oh no, I can't run away because I have no legs. Oh no. And then the cat, you know, and then just bring it back, put it on the porch. Thank you, Fluffy. But yeah, if you ever see that happen, it's pretty amazing. So you kept some cats around to keep the mice and the snakes away. And you also saw guineas. You all know what a guinea is? A guinea is like a big fat quail-like bird, about that big. And they use them for meat and for eggs. My next door neighbors have guineas. All day, all night.
Yes.
And they, especially at 5:30 in the morning underneath your bedroom window. So, and you would also see peacocks and peahens. Now you think that's exotic, but peacocks and peahens were utilized by the pioneers for also for eggs and for meat. I had a pet peacock once. It showed up one day. Nobody knew where it came from. Probably nobody wanted to claim it. I made the mistake of feeding it. So it became a pet. It wouldn't leave. And I would come out every morning, and it would be roosted in a tree outside the back door, and there was a pile of dung that high every morning. I said, oh my gosh, that much came out of you? Like, wow. And when I would come down the trail, he would follow me, and when they fly, they go, Then mating season comes. And they sound like a woman being brutally murdered slowly. And people will call the police that don't know any better.
Yep.
What's going on here? Oh, that. Well, I'm sorry, me too. And when they do that plumage thing, you know, the NBC thing, do, that's very aggressive behavior. They are feeling their stuff. And I had my son, when he was about like 3 or 4 years old, pull around a little red wagon in the backyard. That peacock was over there, came over and started pecking his head. I said, oh, your days are numbered, friend. So I knew some idiots, friends, who wanted a peacock. So I said, come on. And they were young people, and they said, oh, what a beautiful animal. Yeah, he's yours. And there were about 5 or 6 of them, and they gathered in a circle and did this. I wish I had a camera. And they got close enough, and finally just blah, 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 blah. It flew. It's not an ostrich. I didn't know they could fly. It took them 5 minutes to get over that shock. They chased that thing 45 minutes all over my woods and property. Never once got close. So you giving up? No, we got an idea. We'll be back next weekend. Don't kill it. That was tempting though. Probably tastes just like chicken. Anyhow, they came back the next week, and they had in the back of the truck a big cage with some wooden slats and chicken wire around it, and a trap door. Inside, they had borrowed someone's peahen. And they sat down there, and the little peahen said, ooh, ooh. And 5 minutes later, bam, he's caught. Sex gets him every time. So it was pretty wild. Everything was self-sufficient. Everything was handmade. You get a cow, and you're making your clothes of buckskin. They probably had buckskin diapers back then. And a lot of people, they had to make their own medicine. The nearest doctor might be 50 miles away. He's a quack. So they learned a lot from the Native Americans. The Native Americans knew which bark of a tree, what root, what berry to make different remedies. And since we're talking about Native Americans, a lot of people on the frontier were intermarried with the Native American Creeks. And here's some of the things that the Creeks gave us. These are ceremonial. This is the turtle skin with the beads inside of it. Or another thing they use in ceremonies these are deer toes. And they make them a little rattle, and so they have these ceremonial dances. And so there's a lot of stuff that we borrowed from the Creek Indians. I'm part Creek myself. In fact, I'll put in a plug, Saturday and Sunday, the Santa Rosa Band of Creek Indians of Willow Norris Road, they're having the Creek Fest. They've got a new council house, vendors and stuff. It's an awesome thing. I've been there several years. Anyhow, hey, you know what I do?
Is it gonna rain now, Brian?
Anyhow, everything was homemade. Everything, you know, you couldn't go to the big city, because the big city, today, it's like 30 minutes away. But it took 40 forever to get there. Everybody went by boat. There was no Highway 98. It would have been traffic filled with traffic and everything. It was difficult to get from place to place. So people stayed at home and took care. They built whatever they needed. They raised whatever they needed. Everything was homemade. Now, what do they do for fun and recreation? Real quickly. They had children. But another thing they did, the men would go off on 2-week-long hunting and fishing trips. Actually, this still goes on. But a lot of times, the hunting fishing trips would end in tragedy, and people would die because of alcohol. Listen, babies were weaned on money shots back then. And so these guys would go off on a hunting fishing trip, something happened, and they have a horrible accident, someone would die. This still goes on. You hear about a Escambia County fisherman has been missing, and they find his body floating in the bay. They don't tell you that when they found the boat he fell out of, there were 25 empty beer cans at the bottom of it. Usually alcohol is a contributing factor. Now the women, what they did for fun and recreation, they had quilting bees. Because even in North Florida, as we know, it gets cold down here. And this is for electric blankets. And so what people would do, they would make a quilt. Quilt is very laborious, it's time consuming, but many hands make, easy work. And so several times a month, the women would meet at one location and work on that person's quilt. After it was done, they would work on another person's quilt. And got a chance to socialize, to gossip, and also drinking enormous amounts of whiskey. Oh yeah. We saw those frontier quilts had survived, and let me tell you, nothing's lined up. Those women were snickered. I mean, you just like, whoa, okay. So, but it was a different age. You had some celebrations, like on New Year's Day and Eve, they would send off fireworks. 4th of July, they would have fireworks. And they always complained of people being injured by fireworks. 150 years ago, nothing's changed. They would, at Christmas, they didn't have like flock trees, but in the pioneer days, what they do is take a part of a cedar tree and take it in a nearly empty flour barrel, roll it around, and you've got a white flocked tree. And so things were much more simple. And it was a different age. You also, sadly, there was a lot of violence. And because it's a rough and tumble environment, people call it today Southern hospitality. We say yes, ma'am, and yes, sir. All that sort of good stuff. You open the door for someone? Southern hospitality. It's frontier survival. You were nice to people so they wouldn't kill you. It didn't take much to get people set off, So you're in a general store, somebody's telling a story, yeah, right, well, and suddenly the person has been offended and taken out a knife and repeatedly trying to stab you. So that's not good. If a perfect stranger rode up on horseback to your isolated homestead, you said, hey, it's almost night. Why don't you put your horse in the barn and feed it? Hey, come in. We're having supper. You can join us. Why do you do that? They're a complete stranger. They might be a psychopathic, murderer. Be nice to them. Hey, be nice to people. It's not a bad thing. When you go into the Publix parking lot and you see a really good parking space and some idiot pulls in right ahead of you and you flip them off and then they pull out an Uzi, was it worth it? Just be nice, nice, okay, you're going to burn in hell, don't worry. But yeah, you had to be careful. It didn't take much to set people off. They would have these frontier fights, these rough times, especially the very uneducated. They would have these fights, these brawls that would go on for a long time. Usually, before they started, they would actually tell you what they're gonna do to you. Like a monologue. If you're smart, you're trying to get away. I actually have one of these monologues here, somewhere here. Hold on, I gotta read you this. Somewhere here. Hold on. Oh, you're getting bored, so am I. Oh, here we go. Let me read this. This is a classic example of frontier. Bunch of people were sitting around one Saturday night drinking liquor. This is usually where fights break out. Nothing's changed. And one person got up and started singing, apparently could have carried two in a bucket. And the other person said, "What the hell you call that? Can't you sing nothing purty, you dash, egg sucking, sheep stealing, one-eyed son of a stuffed monkey?" This was considered an insult. So the person who had been addressed jumped up, clicked up his hands and said, "Woo! I'm the old original Iron John brass mounted copper belt coat maker from the wilds of Arkansas. You dare to insult me? Don't even attempt to look at me with a naked eye, gentlemen. Contemplate me through leather. Don't use a naked eye. I'm the man with a petrified heart and borderline bowels. The great American desert is my enclosed property, and I bury my dead on my own premises. Eat them up for breakfast. Woo! Bow your neck and child for the pet calamity coming at you." Today we call these professional wrestlers. It's the same thing. It really is. And you had family feuds, like, there's a very popular game show. You had the Hatfields, McCoys. People are killing each other for 20 years because Grandpapa Smith got Grandpapa Joe's tater patch 20 years ago. Ridiculous stuff. And you had dueling in downtown Pensacola, close to the graffiti bridge. That's where the dueling grounds were. So, it was a wild, primitive environment. And we do have a lot of phrases that came from that time period. Let me give you examples of some of these phrases. I'll go toe to sack of taters.
Yeah.
Old stomping grounds. Fixin' to. We still use that in the South. Fixin' to. You never yelled at someone, you hollered at them. You never won, you whip them. Or whoop ass on them. If somebody said a severe dog is behind you, means a wild, rabid, possibly, foam at the mouth dog is coming up behind you. Tie to let off steam, to cut loose, to be in a tight place. They work from sun up to sundown. He took a licking. I'm gonna mosey on down to the general store. Well, aren't you persnickety? You never threw anything, you would chunk it. I'm gonna chunk a dirt clod at you. A person might be rip-roaring, highfalutin, and rambunctious. Well, tarnation. Euphemisms were everywhere. If you had a problem child, they called them a boatload of earthquake. Yeah. And we've lost a lot of that really cool, folklore and pioneer language. Some of the things, it's darker than the inside of a cow. She was as nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. Their land was so poor they couldn't even raise a fuss on it. So it was a different world, but I'm just trying to share a couple things with you so you get a glimpse into that pioneer world and realize these people lived a completely different world that we can't really grasp. I mean, today if we get the power, it goes off for 5 minutes, we're freaking out. Yeah. We really should, we take for granted too much technology. But when you see how the people lived and struggled for survival, it makes you appreciate these early pioneers that came to the Panhandle and set up, eventually, all these roads with traffic and subdivisions, and what would they think? Listen, I'll tell you a personal story. Years ago, I was dating a young lady in Gulf Breeze, 1986, and in the wintertime, I'd leave her place about 1 o'clock in the morning and go down A98 to Midway, to Navarre, and up 87 close to the interstate where I lived, and not see one car. I mean, there was nothing between, just a little thing at Midway, the zoo came, but there was nothing. Not one car on 9887. It's just, yeah, that doesn't happen anymore. So, in our own lifetimes, we've seen a lot of changes just happening day by day. So, you look back, and these pioneers are like from another age. Maybe only 100, 200 years old, but, it's like being back in the Middle Ages. Anyhow, folks, thank you for your time. I hope you got some fun out of it. And information. If you got any questions, I'll let someone else answer them.
I have a question.
Yes, 42.
When you said they shot off fireworks,
Yeah,
what kind of, what is it?
firecrackers, basically,
Oh,
yeah.
They know how to make them?
Oh, yeah, they've been around for, you know that they have rockets too. Well, yeah, remember in the national anthem, the rockets red glare? The English were shooting rockets in Fort McHenry.
Oh.
And so, you know, I'm sure they were probably illegal, but that doesn't stop people from doing it, does it?
No.
Yes, sir.
How long the wheel?
Hmm?
How long is the wheel?
Yeah, open
Oh.
up that window.
I've got it tied up for a reason. It's about 8 feet.
8 feet?
Yeah. Now, I saw this one guy, he was a county judge, and he was expert, his was like 15 feet long.
Wow.
But when they know how to do it, I'm just good enough to do a little bit of damage. But I tell you what, to see people use it, it is amazing.
I have one when I was a boy.
Yeah. My father said this guy, Lash LaRue was a famous Western star back in the 40s.
Yeah.
And he came to Milton or so, and my father got up on the stage and he took the whip and he said, put this cigarette in your lips. My father was like 10 or something. Bam, right like that. And then he said, okay, no, I'm gonna do something, it's not gonna hurt you. So he hit the whip and it wrapped all around, it cracked, and then it went around him. So it was very soft, but it looked pretty stunning from the
Wow.
stage.
Kidding.
So yeah, these people, there are people that can, I'm not gonna do a demonstration. I was telling them, I had an 1857 replica Colt revolving carbine I was gonna bring. I figured somebody see me, report me to the police. I didn't really want to spend the night in the police station, but, so, we don't wanna do any damage to anybody. Yes, sir.
Any additional information about dueling in Pensacola?
Oh, yeah,
Like
Frascati
Like the
was
last
a dueling
year or
grounds.
some of the, like that?
Believe it or not, if you look at dueling, I mean, sometimes it was to the death, first blood, but a lot of times people got offended, and politicians were always doing this. Somebody's making a speech and somebody's saying, yeah, yeah. Are you saying I'm lying? Your lips are moving, aren't they? They come down and take a glove, slap you, and they say, sir, you have offended the honor of my good name, the honor of my family. I demand satisfaction on the field of honor tomorrow morning. You say, what the heck is honor? And everything, people have this sense of honor. And usually though, I mean, there were people like Alexander Hamilton, it cut short his singing career. Took you a while to know that one. Anyhow, some of it was to the death. Jackson fought like 20 duels. He had a bullet next to his heart the rest of his life. There were people that died. But if you look at statistics, especially in Florida, the majority of people at their duels both survived. Because what happened is you get up in the morning and say, oh, it's a beautiful, I gotta fight a duel. And you don't feel as offended. But you gotta go through with the people and say, oh, you're a wuss, you're a wuss. And so you go down there to the dueling grounds. You know, yesterday I said some things that really were too wild. I do apologize. Thank you. But we need to go through with this, but I am sorry for what I said. Just, well, you know, you were right. And they just hope that they're making connection. And so these people who were good shots would take a pistol or something, walk 20 paces, turn around, and birds, you know, over there would fall over dead.
Right.
And so, are you okay? Yes. Has your honor been avenged? It has. Buy you a beer. That's how most ended. A little common sense creeped in. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I had heard one time that a lot of the turpentine,
It started out that way. Mainly because the turpentine industry was located in North Carolina. That's why they're called the tar heels. All the pine trees that were in the colonial period, and they did have indentured servants working there, and that's where you get that. As you get down to here, you've got basically a lot of poor whites and poor blacks, a lot of people who didn't have anything else to do. Once the pine played out in North Carolina, it came down to North Florida, between Jacksonville and Mississippi. So by that time, it was just, sometimes you did have, in the 1920s, you had convict labor. And it's trying to save money. Florida, for instance, if somebody got convicted for a crime, they would rent them out. Instead of putting them in prison, rent them out to a turpentine company. Yeah, some horrible abuses.
Did they get turpentine from the long leaf pine?
Yes. Now, the first longleaf pines were, 400 years old. They're like 75 feet to the first limb. These things were huge. They used those, cut them all down, not thinking about reforestation. And what you have is they didn't think about replanting till the 1920s, it was too late. But the second growth and third growth, those were the ones, those smaller trees, that's what they used in turpentine. Let me see, if you get, I think I mentioned this to people beforehand. Raymond Melvin has a turpentine museum in Holly, up 87, best collection of all these tools. And he's got a tool shed with all these turpentine tools from begin to end that would fit this half of the room. It's amazing. It's a lost art. They only do it a few times over the years because, and turpentine was used primarily because there were wooden ships. Wooden ships leak. You have to have pitch and turpentine. You always had barrels of pitch and turpentine on a ship that was wooden, because if it started leaking, you had to stop the leak. So that's why they're often called naval stores. And you hear the word, that's turpentine, naval stores. But yeah, it's a fascinating industry.
Was it sort of an evolution, like first the cypress trees were like large cypress trees in northwest Florida, and then those were harvested for the Navy or shipping industry, and then the pine trees, and then the turpentine industry, it's sort of an evolution.
Central Florida had most of the cypress. And sometimes you can find big old holes out in the middle of the woods here, and during the Spanish period, what they do is they dig up a pine tree by the roots, and then they make it into a mast for a ship. And where the ground level, air level is, that was where the below decks and above decks would be, because it's used to the swaying of the wind. It would be perfect for a mast of a ship, because it's used to that tension. So you see these big old people would actually dig up a pine tree. But yeah, the pine industry, I need to come back one day and show you that PowerPoint with the lumber industry and all the stuff that was going on. That would be fun.
March,
Yeah.
your book.
Whatever. Yes, sir.
Getting back to the log cabin, when they built the log cabin, did they debark the inside of the cabin?
Usually, yeah.
What do they fill it with?
What do you mean?
Well, when you debark a tree, the wood is exposed. Do they seal the wood with anything?
They often put that caulking, the clay.
Yeah.
The clay was often used.
On the wood they debark?
Yeah, exactly. Because every summer, they knock the clay off.
Okay.
To bring it in, and they put the clay back in the wintertime to keep the draft from.
Well, I just wondered because, when you debark a tree, it starts drying out.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know.
But then again, a lot of times they use virgin pines. And you've got that
Okay.
sap in there,
Yeah.
they don't rot.
Yeah, okay.
That's why you've got people that have heart of pine houses today, and they can't hang up pictures on the wall because it breaks the nails.
That's it, yeah.
You have to use a drill to go in there, because it's still got that rosin in there. Yeah, so yellow pine is a very hard thing.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
basically its own sealer.
Yes, it is.
Lighter knot houses is what they
Yeah.
do.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you for saying lighter. That's another word that people don't know about. A lot of people trying to, lighter knot is the end of a limb on a pine tree. That's where the pine sap is basically focused, and the tree might die, but these lighter knots will lay there, and they're perfect for kindling wood and
Yeah.
firewood, and because it's just basically, that stuff still burns in there.
It's no good too.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect way for starting a fireplace fire. You other cool stuff? I'm learning from y'all. This is great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, Brian, I have one last question about Randall Broxson.
Yeah,
So you got his book?
yeah, I've got his book is up here, and I'll tell you what, I will leave all these flyers for you,
Okay.
and right up here, and, exactly, yeah, yeah.
And you brought some books with you?
I got some books.
And how much are they?
$10 even.
Okay, all right, so how many do you have?
I think I've got like only 10.
10, okay, so if anybody wants one, well, let's, we give another round of applause for
You're a great group.
You would do such a
Is-
great job, it is so entertaining, and we have a little gift for you, this is our thank you, these are
Oh, look
ginger
at all the
crinkle
money in it.
cookies.
Oh, that's not money.
No,
That's
not
better.
Yeah, they are good.
Sweet.
Thank you,
Okay.
Brian.
Sure.
Thank you, Jim, for getting Brian, it's, I knew, you know, I couldn't really remember what the last program was you did, but I just knew it's so much fun when he comes, so you do not disappoint, for sure.
Thank you.
So what we'll do, we'll take a little quick break, and if you want a book, hustle up and get that. And then if you can stay for the meeting, we'd love to have you, it won't be that long. If you can't, we understand, and we're so glad you came to